Hi, welcome back to Chop's Garage. Today what I thought I'd do is I'm getting asked such a lot by you guys about flipping cars. I thought I'd go through the top 5 easiest small car flips for you starting out wanting to flip your first few cars. So we're going to go through the easiest ones to buy that are under about £2,000. So like I say, these are all small first time cars or family runabouts. We're going to go with the ones that are easiest to fix. And we're going to go on the easiest to sell fast. So all of these cars, in my experience, fly out the door. They never have mechanical problems, touch wood, that are too hard to fix, and you can normally get them privately or auction under 2k. So first up, number 5 is the Vauxhall Corsa 1.2. Done a load of these. My top tips of these are go for a 5-door model. It's a wider market because then it caters for first-time car buyers as well as a family runabout. The flat colours do tend to sit around, very long. So we do not want to go for flat reds, the dark blues, the greens. These sell well for me in metallic silvers, metallic greys, and white. They sell particularly well. And light pastel colours, light yellows, that kind of colour. You want to go for the ones that have got the auxiliary input and the Bluetooth for the phone. They, again, for first-time buyers are a big plus. The other models will sell, and you can put little Bluetooth kits in them. But if you can get it as standard kit, it's worth trying to look out for those. They have a habit of having glove boxes break. You'll find them hanging down a lot of the time, broken. But there is a very easy fix for this on YouTube that you can use with zip ties. So don't worry too much about that, but a good negotiation point for if you go to look at them. The very important thing with these 1.2 Corsas is that you listen on startup for a chain rattle. So if you start the car from cold and you hear a rattle of a chain from the engine bay, but before as it starts up, ignore whatever the seller is saying to you. It's quite possible these are chain-driven engines that you're going to need a chain kit on these. The tensioners fail and they allow the chain to rattle. So a lot of the time they've already been done on this kind of age of vehicles. If you're looking ones that are around about 10 years old with sort of 80,000 plus miles on, 70,000 plus miles on, a lot of time a chain will have been done. And if you've got evidence in the service history of that, brilliant, or in the receipts. But if it has never been done to the owner's knowledge and you've got a rattle on startup, you're going to have a chain problem. And you're looking at about 300 quid to get that fixed. Or more, depending on who you're using. I can get it fixed for a couple of hundred quid with the kit and a friend who does it for an hour's labour. But yeah, allow for about 350, 400. So if that's something that you can't tackle yourself, or there isn't enough margin in it for you to spend 300 or 400 quid and then you hear that rattle, walk away from it. So yeah, number 5, Vauxhall Corsa. It's still one of the best-selling cars at the moment. Still in the top sort of 3 or 4 cars selling across the country. So used ones do well. Number 4, the Fiat 500 1.2. I've done loads of Fiat 500s. You'll see them all over the place when you're driving around. They're super popular little cars. I've personally, like I said, done tons of them, but focus on the 1.2. The Twin Airs, 0.9 turbos are great fun cars. They perform really well, but they do have engine problems. I've never really seen engine problems on the 1.2s, but I do see them on the Twin Airs a lot. So again, for simplicity, avoid them. I've had 1.2s with 180,000 miles on without a problem. They're tough little units, but the Twin Airs, I've seen them fail at 30 and 40,000 miles. So I'd avoid the Twin Air. Spec-wise is really important on Fiat 500s. The pops are base models, and unless you plan on upgrading the stereo to a Bluetooth with an auxiliary plug-in, something like that, they're harder to shift. So go for the Lounge or the S, or what the old ones were called Sports. Colour's really important on these because they're cutesy cars. So the mint green and the baby blue sell super fast. Whites sell well. No flat colours again. You don't want to go for the flat blues or the flat red. Very, very important thing on these 1.2s though. The only thing they do is get rotten sumps. So get underneath the front of the car, look at the sump on the engine, see if it's all crusty and rusty. and see if you've got any oil leak in there. If you have, you're going to need to put a new sump on it for it to pass an MOT again, most likely. A new sump is not expensive. It's 50 or 60 quid for a new sump, but they are fiddly to replace. So again, if you're not doing it yourself, you're looking at a lot of labour. So negotiate hard. Try and knock, say, £400 off it if you're, if you're going to be paying someone to do the job. If you're looking at the car, yeah, and be careful for ones. I've seen them covered up with stone chip and with chemical metal, so watch out for that. The cam belts are due every 5 years on these. They're not renowned for failing. I think they're non-interference as well, if I remember correctly. But people that are doing their research will come to you and ask, has the cam belt been done? A lot of the time, because these cars have lower mileage, the Fiat 500s, people skip the cam belts. But people buying are going to be asking about it. So check. They're due every 5 years. Remember, it's every 5 years regardless of mileage. So yeah, look out for that. Knocking suspension is very common on these. You bomb around in them. A lot of them have got nice alloys on them, like the one in the picture here. The top mounts go, and you'll get a creaking noise as you turn left and right, even before setting off, a squeaky, creaky noise. If you're getting a knock when you go over bumps, it's normally the lower arm on them, lower suspension arm. The rubbers wear out on those. So those are the two main culprits for the suspension knocking, but they're really cheap, and they're something you can do on a driveway really easily with basic tools. So don't worry too much about those, but again, use them as a negotiation point. Stained seats are very common on the lounges, especially with the check trim. You'll look at them, they'll have a big watermark on them, and they'll have picked up all the dirt. Great negotiation point for you, but super easy to clean up with a wet vac. It does come out. You have to get the entire seat wet to get the stain out. So you'll need a wet vac for that, or a friendly valeter. But yeah, use it to negotiate hard on them. But Fiat 500s never hang around. Of all the cars here, they have potentially the most faults with them, irritating faults, not engine faults if you go for the 1.2 as I said, but trim, suspension, those kind of things. But because they sell so fast, they are on the list. Third place goes to the Kia Picanto 1 litre. Again, I've done quite a few of these. These are pretty bulletproof. I rack my brains for things to tell you about, to worry about them on it, but as a general rule, they are bulletproof. They came out with long warranties. They tend to have good service histories. They don't tend to get thrashed about the place. They're tough little cars. They're chain driven, these, so no cam belts to worry about. They can be very basic spec. Try and get a 2 model or above. They go like a 1, a 1 plus and a 2, and then above that. Try and go for a 2 or above, but any model is going to sell on it. Avoid the 3 doors because, again, you don't open yourself up to the market of family runabouts as well as first-time cars. Sometimes the car is going to be shared between, like a family member and a first-time driver. So 5 doors are more practical. You don't see a lot of 3 doors, to be honest, but yeah, try and go for the 5 doors if you can. Bright colours sell best. There's a really good metallic red that sells super quick. The baby blue sells quick. Even the yellows will sell quick. So if you can go for a brighter colour, go for it. Again, avoid a flat red. Red is a bit of a dead colour at the moment. So try and avoid that. But anything is really likely to sell. But the metallic reds, the bright colours sell the best. Because they are first-time cars, because they are town runabouts, they tend to get dented doors because they don't have any bump strips down the side of them. They tend to get scuffed bumpers, so look out for that on the car. And also, if you're going to be outsourcing paint and you're not confident doing it yourself, you want to go for simple colours. White is by far and away the easiest colour to match up. If you're going for something scuffed up and you're going to try it yourself, go for a white. Otherwise, factor in having a little bit of paint done. It is a very mileage-sensitive market on the Kia Picantos because, again, they tend to be town runarounds and people don't want to see mega miles on them. So, go over about 80k at your own risk. It's going to take a bit longer to shift, but great little cars. Number 2, the Hyundai i10 1.2. Again, another car where I really struggled to come up with things to let you know about, to be cautious of, because the ones I've had, touch wood, have been bulletproof. Really have. They've sold super quick and they've caused me no problems. Again, you're really looking for bodywork on these more than anything. Dents and scuffed bumpers, You can get a bit of rust on the arches sometimes, bubbling rust on the arches, so that's something to look out for. And again, factor in, are you going to do that paintwork, and if so, is it an easy colour for you to paint, or are you going to have to outsource it? They do tend to have little dogs in them quite a lot of the time. A lot of the ones I've had have had dog hair in them. It can transfer smell in a small car like that, and it can be hard to get out. So again, look out for that. But again, it's no biggie. The wheel trims on these are held on by the wheel nuts rather than clipping on. So if someone curbs the car, it normally bends the wheel trim because it can't pop off. The wheel studs are holding it in place. So allow for putting a set of wheel trims on it or having to tidy up. A lot of the time when they're bent, if you undo the wheel nuts, the actual trim will come straight again, and you can scuff it and give it a spray with a generic silver paint, and they'll tidy up well. So again, like I said, it was hard for me to say anything mechanically wise on these because as a general rule, there aren't problems. Everyone I've had in has sold quickly. Again, I know I've got a picture of a flat red one here, but avoid the flat reds. If you can get metallics, and the lighter metallics, like the light blue metallic one's very popular, but I've sold them metallic black, I've sold them metallic grey. They always sell super quick. Great little cars. And then number one place goes to the Citroen C1 VTR Toyota Aygo. Now, most of you probably know this is the same car, just under a different skin. There is also the Peugeot 107, but it's nowhere near as popular as the Aygo and the Citroen C1. But the Citroen C1, it's the VTR or the VTR Plus. Don't go for any of the other models. The ones that sell quickly is the VTR and the VTR Plus. On the Aygo, it's less sensitive to model because they're all pretty well spec'd. But the Citroens, the base model ones and the lower model ones are really poverty spec, and they don't sell anywhere near as well. But every VTR I've had has flown out the door, absolutely flown out the door. So the VTR and VTR Plus and the Aygo, super quick sellers, perfect first time cars. Again, they're chain driven, 1 litres. They're super low in insurance, really low on insurance. Cheap as chips to run. The engines are pretty bulletproof. I have seen a couple of them with ring wear, but they've just been completely abused and run with pretty poor servicing. I've also seen them with over 100,000 miles on no problem at all. So it comes down to how they're looked after. Again, on these, try and go for a 5-door. Parents tend to prefer 5 doors for first-time drivers as well because they like the idea that their friends are going to be able to get their cars quicker and not going to be leaning over them to do other stuff in the car. And again, it makes it more practical as a second car for the family as a whole as well. So try and go for the 5 doors. These things do leak like sieves. They really do. Get the boot, the carpet up, check underneath the spare wheel well. They leak through the top brake light quite often, but they can also leak through the rear light clusters. They can leak through the rear side windows. They can leak through the rear hatch. They can leak everywhere. And the only way I've found to resolve it is pull out the rear lights, pull out the rear top light, and put sealant behind them. Add another seal in the boot hatch just below, just above the factory one. And again, with the rear windows, sometimes you have to take the rear window out. It's only a couple of bolts though, and put sealant behind where the bolts go in just to stop it from leaking through there. But they can leak badly, so that's something to check out when you're looking at them. I've had a couple with first gear synchro problems because you really need to be at a standstill with this gearbox on these to put it into first, and where it's forced otherwise it sometimes damages the synchro. But the boxes are tiny, the gearboxes are tiny, and they're super easy to swap out. They're small, they're light, they come straight out without having to remove bumpers or lower wishbones or anything like that to get out of the way. You can get it straight out. And I've got replacement ones guaranteed for like £120. Really, really cheap to swap out. So even if you're not doing it yourself, if someone else is doing it, you want to factor in probably about, I don't know, let's say, it's difficult to say, about £300-400 for the job to be done. So part of your negotiations. But yeah, just check that first gear synchro. So that's my top tips for top 5 cars. From my personal experience of flipping cars, they're the best ones to go for. They're hassle-free, they sell quick, you won't have them sitting around for long. Some of you asked me for tips on how to sell them and how to add value. So how to add value to these types of cars. A new MOT always helps, of course, even if it's got, you know, a long one on it. A brand new one helps a lot in the sale of a car. If it's got a very long one at the moment, then the chances are if you stick it in for another MOT, it's not going to need much at all because there's only been a short gap between the two. Obviously, there's an element of risk to that, so work that into your maths, but a new MOT always helps shift a car along. A fresh service. None of the cars we've looked at here cost more than about 50 quid for an air filter, and oil. So and they can all be serviced on your driveway super simply. Most of them have drain plugs at the front of the engine and the oil filters at the front of the engine, so you can actually do it on your driveway without even jacking the car up a lot of the time. And the air filters are really easy to swap out as well. So for the sake of 50 quid, you can put a brand new service on it, then that's going to add a lot of value to the car. Wheel trims on all of these are like to be scuffed up. So get the wheel trims off, give them a key up with a scuff pad and use a generic silver appliance silver paint or generic silver wheel paint from like Halfords or whatever, and give the wheels a tart up, or just spend 20 or 30 quid on a new set of wheel trims. I always prefer to see manufacturer's wheel trims on, so if you can refurb the manufacturer's ones, you save a little bit of money and it's a better look than aftermarket. If you do go for aftermarket, just don't go for the absolute cheapest one, go for ones that actually look good on the car. Some of them do, you know, give that sort of alloy wheel look on them. Touching any scuffs on the paint. If you're not a confident painter, don't try and paint, just try and touch in the scuffs. Go to your local, you can go Halfords or like I've got Marlowe's local to me who do the paint supplies and can give you a matching paint. So touch in little scuffs just so they don't draw the eye. Give those scuffs a little going over with some compound first to make sure that they're not just on the surface of the paint, because a lot of the time they're just on the surface of the paint and you can get them out with a compound. And if you've got the time to machine polish the rest of the body, do. But yeah, scuffs, touching up the paint is worthwhile. Replacing little bits of trim, that kind of thing. And seats and carpets. Odds on that they've never had a wet vac or a proper clean. You don't necessarily use a wet vac. You can get the drill brushes that fit on your drill. Get a soft drill brush, and that will get a lot of the dirt out of the seats, and then you can just wipe it back off again with a cloth. But it will make a world of difference to the inside of the car. Obviously, cleaning the car is a major thing, but there's different levels of cleaning. There's throwing a bucket over it, and there's going over all the interior, the plastics, giving the plastics a nice shine, giving the tyres a shine, giving the rubbers on the outside of the car a shine. That can really add value, because a lot of people who sell these cars privately don't bother to give them a proper clean. How to sell it? Well, firstly, good photos are key, and so many people photograph cars with stuff in the background, like other cars. They do it on their driveway with other cars in the background, or a supermarket car park, or petrol stations is the worst I've seen, with loads of other cars in the background. Go and find a spot with nothing else in the background, just nice scenery or a blank wall or something like that. Take your photos there. If you have to wait until other people have disappeared off home to do it in a nice car park or a work car park, that would be quite a good place to do it. But basically, take lots of photos from lots of different angles so that you can pick out the best, so you don't end up having to compromise, and do the photos with something with nothing in the background. You know, if you can find a nice house somewhere in the country or something like that, or a nice beauty spot, that would be great. But otherwise, wait till work's emptied out, do it in a nice clear car park. Facebook's free and is brilliant. I know people whinge about Facebook, but for this kind of these kind of cars that you're going to be selling, you know, around sub $3,000, Facebook's great. Gumtree can be free as well, as if you're just doing a few cars. Car Guru, you can get free advertising on Car Guru as well, and eBay is only about 20 quid to list a car for 28 days, something like that. So that's a good place to do it. But don't be lazy. Don't put it in one place and hope for the best. Put it everywhere you can for free. And set a price below competitors, but then don't budge on it. So a lot of people think, well, okay, I'll build in some wiggle room for myself. Your phone will ring a lot quicker. You'll get a lot of more people wanting to come and see the car. It'll sell a lot quicker for you if you market your price below competitors, which sounds like an obvious thing, but a lot of people think the other way around. They think mark it up a bit higher and then allow yourself to get knocked down. My viewpoint is set your very best price where you're happy with the profit you're making that sits below competitors, but then when people come and see the car, don't budge on your price. They know they came to see it because you were below competitors' pricing already. They know it was a good price. That's why they came to see it. By the time they've come all the way out and they've seen this car that you've done your service on, you've cleaned it up, made it look fantastic, and you've put it out at a keen price, they're not going to want to go home without it. So just don't budge your price and be perfectly honest. Say, I've given my policy is I give my very best price first so that everyone gets the same price and they get the best price first, and you're here because you already know it's a great price and it's a great car for the price. So set below competitors, don't budge on your price, and the car will move quickly. And you will have a queue of people wanting to see it as well. So best of luck with that. Hope it all makes sense. If you found this of value, please give it a thumbs up, give it a like, and please subscribe so that other people that could this information will be valuable for can see it as well. That thumbs up will give the algorithm a tip that you like it, and it'll help others see it as well. If you want to go back, you'll see that some of these cars that if you're new to my channel, if you'll go back, you'll see some of these cars I've actually done the full flip on my channel, so you can see from my experience there. But a lot of you have been talking about trying to get into the car game. Do it as a side hustle at first. Keep your income coming off your current job. Do it as a side hustle. The risks are relatively low because you've always got something of value out of it. You're not just pissing it up a wall, to be frank. You've always going to have something that's got some value that you're going to put your money to. In worst case scenarios, you use a little bit of money. But you know, these cars that I've shown you here are pretty surefire bets. People are always looking for these cars. You can always pick them up at a good price. There's always margin to be made on them by tidying them up. So yeah, best of luck with that and give it a go. A lot of you, that are not happy in your current jobs, that like the idea of flipping cars, just keep that income coming off your current job and just try one little car at a time, and you'll soon get your experience up. Thanks a lot for watching as always, guys. Really appreciate it, and I will respond to all comments. So let me know about your experiences if you give it a go. Let me know about your experience if you've had any of these cars yourself. Thanks again.